Hey everybody, I said I was going to do an update and certainly need to. It's pretty easy to see what's different here. I've gone from the old one hive, and then my last video I talked about splitting it into two, and now I'm up to four. So explain to you what I did here. Basically, the process that I used was a cutback split, and I was advised to do this by Bush_84 on the Bee Source forums. And I like it. The theory behind it seems to make sense, and it seems to work. Now I say that these two here I am not 100% confident in yet, and I'll tell you why. But anyway, what I did was, we'll go through a little history here. That was my original 3-foot hive that I first hived the bees in, and just a couple weeks ago it got to the point that they had outgrown it. So then I built this one, which is identical to that one in dimensions, but 4-foot long. Moved all the bees from the 3-footer into the 4-footer, and then decided, hey, I've got this 3-foot box sitting here that I'm not using for anything, so why not try my hand to make a split? Now, I was pretty confident in the theory of doing it, the reason being that I know I have a strong, healthy queen, and so worst case scenario, if the split doesn't survive, then I've still got that queen, and all I've done is set my hive back a little bit. So down here in Houston, I'm not really concerned about a dearth, or the bees not being able to build back up before winter. And if there does start to be any sort of shortage in forage, I will feed them, but right now, crepe myrtle trees are in bloom everywhere. There's lots of stuff still in bloom. The drought, we haven't got a real bad drought yet. So anyway, what I did was, out of the 4-foot box, I took the queen, the marked queen, and 5 or 6 frames of brood over to the 3-foot box. Then I actually reversed them places. So the 4-foot box was sitting over there for a week or two after I built it. So then I flip-flopped them so that the 3-foot box now sits where the 4-foot box was. What that does is that took all of the foragers that would have been coming back to the 3-foot hive and dumps them all on, would have been coming back to the other hive, the donor hive here, I'm sorry. Tell you what, let's go in number order, okay? So y'all can keep up with me. This is number 1. And this doesn't make sense, but this is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3, and this is number 4. And the reason that I did it like that is because that's the order in which I had them, established them, what have you. Anyway, so I took the queen and the 5 frames of brood and I moved them over to hive number 2. And then I put hive number 2 in the position where hive number 1 was. And what that does is that took all the foragers that would have come back to number 1 and they go to number 2. Some people say, well, that's a problem because now you've got a ton of foragers in a hive with nowhere to put stores. And they're going to fill up the brood nest, the queen's not going to have anywhere to lay. But what that actually did for me, and what I expected to do, was that just gave me a ton of foragers bringing back resources so the bees could pull comb quickly. And they were slow for about a week. They kind of were stalled seeming, and they seemed overcrowded. But then they really started ramping comb. They really started pulling comb fast. So anyway, what that left was, in hive number 1, I was left with, I believe, 16 frames of mixed brood and stores. So the idea with a cutback split is that you take your strong queen and you leave a large hive with no queen but everything they could possibly need to raise a queen. And that's what they did. I gave them, after just a couple days, I noticed several queen cells built out on the ends of the frame. I could count 12 just looking through the glass, and I suspected there were about just as many on the back side that I couldn't see. Based off my queen calendar, the day that I made the cutback split was June 10th, so that would be basically the same as the day that a queen breeder would have grafted. The eggs were laid on June 7th. Anyway, so I let them go. I let them build the queen cell cups. Waited. The calendar that I got says there's a 3-day period when they're sensitive development, don't mess with them. So I waited past that day, and the day after is the day you're supposed to move them into nukes. And so since I had so many queens, I thought, what a perfect time to make a few nukes. And that is when I built number 3 and number 4. So what I did was I had the 16 frames of, capped brood and all the queen cells on them, and I just split them evenly. Obviously you can't split 16 by 3, but I split, I think, 5, 5, and 6 into this one. And then I went through and I made sure that in each one of these, the 3 small ones now, queenless, made sure that each one had 2 to 3 queen cells. And that left me with a dozen that I was able to save that I actually donated to another local beekeeper on goodwill. So maybe someday he'll give me something in return, we'll see. But I just preferred to do that. I know I could have sold them, but I preferred to just give them away, because or else I would have just killed them. So I did that. I damaged a few along the way that I accidentally, broke their cells open or whatever. Yeah, now I have one extremely strong queen right hive. I actually just pulled the leaderboard out of it tonight when I was doing a little bit of inspections, because they were so crowded in there. Not really crowded. It's not like they were balled up crowded, but the bees were pretty thick, so I figured I'd just go ahead and pull the board, give them full reign of what they want in the hive. Then I have the 3 queenless splits. Now, I've been referring to these as my queenless nukes just because basically they are nukes. Yeah, they're not in a nuke box, but I have the leaderboards set in there to where they only have 5 or 6 frames of brood, and then they have a couple of open bars, so they've got a little bit of space. Where I stand tonight looking at it, obviously that one over there is doing fine. This one over here is doing very well. It has a lot of bees in it despite being low numbers of comb. This one, as you can see with all the activity, is obviously capturing some foragers. It looks like the other 2 hives have quieted down quite a bit, but there are a lot of foragers coming in here. So either they're foraging or they're robbing, but that I don't know. I made a video a long time ago thinking that my bees were getting robbed, and it turns out that actually just around this time of night, around 6:30 to 7, as the sun starts to set, I get a lot of activity around my hives. I guess it's a lot of the field bees that are coming in for the night, so I assume that's what's going on with this one. And this last one, not a lot going on in there. It's very, very low on bees. These 2 theoretically should be equal in numbers, but I think what foragers this one may have had probably have ended up going back to this one or this one due to drifting. But what I did tonight was actually opened up this one, and the queen cells appear to have hatched, or at least there are no grubs in them, no larvae, and there's big holes in the side, so either they hatched or they for some reason died and the bees opened it up and ripped them out. But I pray they hatched. They were supposed to hatch today. I didn't see them because I didn't know what to look for, but I pray they hatched. Anyway, that's it for my story, and it sounds like I've got visitors, so I gotta go. See you guys.